In the fading winter of 1945, when the thunder of the Second World War finally dissolved into silence, the victorious nations felt a chill far deeper than the cold wind sweeping across the ruins of Europe. Cities lay broken like ancient statues toppled from their pedestals, and millions of survivors wandered through landscapes that no longer resembled home. Peace had arrived, but it came wrapped in uncertainty, and in the uneasy glow of victory, a new conflict began to take shape, quiet, invisible, and far more unpredictable. Within the corridors of Washington, a restless fear grew. The Soviet Union tightened its hold over Eastern Europe, building an iron curtain that seemed to descend inch by inch. Secrets became the new battleground. Atomic knowledge, diplomatic intentions, military blueprints, all of it was suddenly more valuable than any treasure ever pulled from the earth. American leaders understood that the next struggle would not be fought with grand armies clashing in daylight, but with operatives drifting through the shadows of foreign streets, trading whispers for power. During the war, the nation had depended on the Office of Strategic Services, an improvised band of scholars, explorers, soldiers, and unconventional minds. They broke codes, sabotaged railways, and built networks that stretched across continents. But when the OSS was abruptly dissolved in the final months of 1945, the United States found itself stripped of its eyes and ears at the very moment the world's future was being rewritten. Out of this void emerged a conviction that America needed a new guardian, one capable of waging war in the silence between nations. And so, in the warm summer of 1947, President Harry Truman signed the National Security Act. With a few strokes of a pen, he brought into existence a force that would operate beyond public scrutiny, the Central Intelligence Agency. Unlike past institutions, the CIA was born without the bright ceremony of democratic tradition. It had no clearly defined boundaries, no established expectations, and no textbook describing how far it might someday reach. Some lawmakers viewed it as a necessary shield for a fragile peace. Others, even in those early days, sensed the outline of a weapon that could cut both outward and inward. From its first breath, the agency was shaped by secrecy. Its architects believed that a democracy could be protected only if certain truths remained hidden, even from its own citizens. Thus, in the fragile calm after the most destructive war in human history, the United States unleashed a quieter instrument, one that would not march, but whisper, not invade, but influence, not claim victory, but shape it from the dark. By the dawn of the 1950s, the Central Intelligence Agency had already woven itself into the machinery of American authority. It possessed no armies, no fleets, and no formal power to declare war. Yet behind the walls of its headquarters, the agency moved with a quiet confidence that suggested influence far beyond its official mandate. In a world divided between two superpowers, information had become a weapon as potent as any missile, and the CIA quickly learned to wield it with precision. The agency was built around a simple belief that the United States must know everything, everywhere, at every moment. To achieve this, its leaders organized its work into distinct directorates: covert operations, intelligence analysis, science and technology, and internal support. Each directorate functioned like a hidden organ in a vast political body, unseen yet essential. Together, they formed a structure capable of shaping events continents away without ever appearing in the public record. But the true force of the CIA did not lie in its organization. It lay in the freedoms granted to it. Operating with budgets concealed beneath layers of classified documents, the agency could launch missions without the burden of explanation. Even within the government, few individuals understood the full extent of its reach. Some critics whispered that the agency had become a government within a government, an instrument capable of bending foreign nations with the same ease that it bent shadows. Its early operations reflected this growing confidence. In the Middle East, the CIA began to monitor political storms gathering around oil fields that supplied the lifeblood of Western economies. In Latin America, their agents mapped shifting alliances, searching for even the smallest sign of communist influence. And throughout Europe, the agency built a clandestine network of informants, defectors, and undercover officers whose reports traveled across oceans to shape American strategy. To many inside Washington, the CIA appeared to be the perfect tool for a new kind of struggle, One fought not on battlefields but in back rooms, embassies, and dimly lit alleys. Yet power that grows in secrecy rarely remains gentle. The more the agency succeeded, the more it believed that it alone understood the hidden logic of global affairs. Thus, by the close of the decades, the CIA had become something unprecedented in American history, an invisible engine humming beneath the surface of democracy, driving the nation's destiny in ways the public could not yet imagine. In every era, the Central Intelligence Agency has stood at the edge of visibility, present enough to shape events, yet distant enough to deny its own fingerprints. Historians often remark that the CIA's greatest power is neither its covert operations nor its technical mastery, but its ability to let silence speak in its place. What lies behind that silence has fascinated the public for decades. The origins of the agency trace back to the uneasy dawn of the Cold War, when the United States believed that information itself could determine the fate of nations. The pressures of that era forged a new kind of institution, one designed not for open declarations, but for shadows, whispers, and the weight of decisions that could never be acknowledged. Many of the so-called secrets the CIA never wants you to know do not involve hidden conspiracies, but rather the complex and often uncomfortable realities of intelligence work. Among the most guarded truths is the fundamental reliance on human beings. Despite the dramatic images of satellites sweeping silently across continents, the agency's most valuable asset has always been a single individual willing to risk everything to provide insight from within an adversary's walls. These relationships, fragile, perilous, and morally ambiguous, rarely make headlines, yet they illuminate more history than any classified satellite image. Another layer of secrecy surrounds the agency's mistakes. Throughout its existence, the CIA has misread political climates, trusted the wrong informants, or underestimated emerging threats. These failures are seldom publicized, not to conceal wrongdoing, but to protect alliances, operations, and the fragile architecture of international trust. The final secret, perhaps the least romantic yet most revealing, is that the CIA's authority is far from absolute. Its actions are encircled by oversight committees, judicial limitations, and political pressures that shift with each administration. What endures, however, is the institution's ability to maintain its mystique, an aura built from half-truths, redacted documents, and decades of unanswered questions. And so, the story of the CIA begins not with revelations of hidden power, but with the tension between what must be known and what must remain unspoken. A tension that continues to shape history long after the doors have closed. As the Cold War deepened through the 1970s and into the 1980s, the Central Intelligence Agency entered an age of operations that officially never happened. No battle maps bore its insignia, no monuments recorded its victories or losses, yet the agency fought in more places than any army in American history. These were wars without declarations, carried out in jungles, deserts, and crowded capitals. Wars shaped by whispers rather than artillery. In distant Afghanistan, the Soviet invasion ignited what became one of the CIA's most ambitious undertakings. Through a vast network of intermediaries, the agency funneled weapons, training, and money to resistance fighters determined to bleed the Soviet Empire. It was a campaign executed in silence, its success measured not by territory won, but by the slow exhaustion of a rival superpower. Few could foresee how these alliances, forged in the dust of Central Asia, would echo into future decades. Elsewhere, the agency refined its craft of political intervention. In Latin America, covert funding and clandestine advisors worked to shape governments that aligned with American strategic interests. Some operations supported democratic movements, others strengthened authoritarian regimes deemed preferable to communist influence. Each action was justified as a necessary move on a global chessboard, yet the human cost often remained unseen by the citizens whose taxes financed these hidden struggles. The moral burden of secrecy pressed harder than ever. Within CIA walls, debates emerged about the boundaries of covert power. Could a democracy defend its values by acting beyond them? Or did every silent victory carry a shadow that crept back toward the nation that ordered it? The end of the Cold War did not bring clarity. Instead, it left behind a world reshaped by decades of invisible conflict. The Soviet Union collapsed, But the landscapes of CIA involvement, from Central America to the Middle East, remained marked by the agency's unseen hand. These were victories without parades, losses without records, and consequences that history would uncover only slowly. In fighting wars that never officially existed, the CIA had become both a guardian and an enigma, an institution whose greatest battles were known only to those who fought them in the dark. When the 20th century gave way to the 21st, the Central Intelligence Agency found itself standing at the threshold of a transformed world. The old rivalry between two superpowers had ended, yet the silence that followed proved more deceptive than any conflict. New threats emerged not from vast armies but from scattered networks, hidden cells, and the invisible realm of digital warfare. The CIA, once shaped by the logic of the Cold War, now had to reinvent itself for battles without borders. The attacks of September 11 thrust the agency into a storm unlike any it had known. Accusations of failure collided with demands for action, and the CIA responded by expanding its reach into territories far beyond traditional intelligence work. Across the Middle East and Central Asia, operatives moved with renewed urgency, gathering fragments of information that might prevent the next strike. The urgency of the moment reshaped the agency's identity, giving birth to programs cloaked in layers of secrecy thicker than ever before. In this era, the CIA operated black sites, undisclosed prisons scattered across foreign lands, and employed interrogation methods that sparked fierce public debate. Supporters argued that extraordinary threats required extraordinary measures. Critics warned that a nation risking its principles in the name of security might one day lose both. These controversies revealed an uncomfortable truth. The line between protection and overreach had grown dangerously thin. As technology advanced, the world entered an age where battles were fought through satellites, algorithms, and silent intrusions into digital networks. The CIA expanded its cyber capabilities, racing against rival services from Russia, China, and other rising powers. Information, once carried in briefcases or whispered in darkened alleys, now traveled as streams of data across continents in fractions of a second. The agency adapted, but each innovation brought new ethical dilemmas and new shadows. In the present day, the CIA occupies a paradoxical place in American life. It is more scrutinized than ever, yet its inner workings remain largely hidden. It is celebrated as a shield and condemned as a specter, and its influence, subtle, persistent, often invisible, continues to shape the world in ways that ordinary citizens may never fully grasp. Thus, as the 21st century unfolds, one question endures: is the CIA merely defending the Republic or quietly defining it?